Hello everyone, my name is Caden, and welcome back to more Chaos Head Noah. Now, before we get into it, I want to go ahead and preface this episode with a bit of a heads up. I'm using a different sound mixer today on today's episode. This might make the audio of me speaking sound different, and and I don't exactly know what that quality is going to be like. It might be good, it might be bad. The test made it seem like it should be good, but this is like my mini test before made it sound like it should be good, but I don't know until I do a proper test with an actual recording. So this recording's audio might be a bit weird, potentially. It might be better, might be worse. I can't tell. Ideally, it should be better, but we'll figure it out as we go. Just thought I'd go ahead and preface this episode with that. So if it sounds weird, I apologize. I'm trying to figure this out. Anyways, let's get actually into the game itself, shall we? Last time we, last time we, you know what? No. I am not going to say what happened last time. Not because it's overly disturbing or anything like that, but because I don't know. Not in the sense that I don't remember, but in the sense that I don't know if what happened last time was real. I don't know what happened last time that was real and what wasn't real. I can't tell what's real in this game anymore and what's not real. So, my only solution is to not explain what happened last time, because I don't know if I can give an accurate statement. So we're just gonna go with it. She's got a sword, and I might be about to get my own sword, which is really cool if I do. Anyways, why do you think that Shibuya attracts so many youths? Suddenly, the conversation I was having with Fess transitioned into something completely unrelated. Sorry, I'm trying to adjust my seat. Japan. No, even if you examine the entire world, you would not find many places similar to this one. Alright. Does this have something to do with D-Sorts? If not, then I didn't care. I had to somehow find a way to get Fess to tell me how to get my hands on a real D-Sword. She just grabbed one. D-Swords come from delusions, apparently. Neither Shinjuku nor Ikebukuro. Shibuya. The name of the city is taking on a life of its own. Both in front of and behind me, the same words were being spoken from the two Fesses at the same exact time. Perfect synchronization. It gave me a somewhat strange feeling. Had Fess split in half? Were both of them the real Fess? Or were they both imposters? There's a thought engraved into the hearts of men all across Japan, that this city carries the name, the City of Youths. The City of Youths? Why is that? Why? Well, that has absolutely nothing to do with me. Because the city is ripe with fashion. Because it is populated heavily with stores. Because many trends originate here. Because it appears often in TV. Because the public transportation is favorable. No, it's none of those. Two Fezzes paused for a moment. Being watched from both in front and from behind started to make me feel uncomfortable. It is because of the greater will. What? The will of a higher being. Or to put simply, the will of God. This is bad, my rational side warned me. Could this be... Maybe she was trying to recruit me into some sketchy religious cult. I began to feel uneasy. Man, maybe I should just get the heck out of here. But upon hearing the next thing Fess said to me, I realized I no longer had that option. These swords too are guided by this well. Alright.
So again, you got this thing called gravity. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Right, last time we saw that these two were kind of off doing their own thing. Evidently, Ban here knows something more about the supernatural phenomenon seemingly going on right now. Specifically in the fact that he did the whole pendulum thing, and knows that no matter, and we saw with Sua, no matter what Sua tried to do in order to change how the pendulum moved, it would always move in an ellipses. No matter what he tried, it would always move in an ellipses. So evidently he knows something more about what's going on. He knows a lot. Ban returned to the main street from the alleyway, and then began walking toward Shibuya Station. Sua, who now assumed they were going to Shinsen, chased after a senior detective with an obvious frown on his face. You mean the law of universal gravitation? Alright, let's take a look. A law discovered by Isaac Newton stating that all matter, energy, and anything that has mass has a force that attracts other things with mass. The force of attraction becomes stronger the heavier the two selections of matter are, and it becomes weaker the greater the distances between them. The law also applies to the gravitational force exhibited by Earth and other planets. There's a famous story which claims Isaac Newton discovered universal gravitation when he saw an apple fall from a tree, but it is no more than a myth. Psychic detective, typically found in America, is an investigator who uses psychic abilities such as clairvoyance in order to aid in solving crime, often appears in Japanese media. However, despite the established title, such a position does not actually exist in America, and the mainstream perception of psychic investigation is that it is extremely ineffective. Drowsing, a technique for locating groundwater, mineral deposits, or other various things by relying on the movement of a rod, pendulum, or other similar technology. One of the most popular methods is to use two angled rods, typically in the form of an L-shaped wire. The person who does the dowsing is called the dowser. It is widely believed that the human body has an internal magnet that reacts to groundwater veins and other objects, and that this causes muscles to move unconsciously. The prevailing theory is that this is why dowsing rods appear as if they move by themselves. So it's basically just the body unconsciously making it move in a specific way. To agree to any form of contract under the condition of being provided the correct information. In Japan, it is primarily used in the medical field. The physician explains the treatment to the patient truthfully, in detail, and in an easily understood manner. This includes the definition of the treatment, as well as its side effects, success rate, risk, costs, alternative treatments, etc. Once the patient fully understands these, they are able to provide consent. Gotcha.
Real good at you got on your shoulders there. Not surprising considering you get the nice college you came out of.
Sua grew discouraged in response to Ban's slightly mocking tone. Well, I unfortunately didn't study occult in my university. That's a shame.
This doesn't have anything to do with the occult. There are these serious
sorry.
There are these areas scattered across the world where gravity is unbalanced. Several of them.
Unbalanced? Okay.
That's what's causing the pendulum to form the elliptical shape. They call it the GE rate in English.
GE rate? GE rate?
Let's see. What did it stand for? Gravitation. Gravitation.
Error? If we're talking gravity here, then could it be gravitation? Gravitation error rate?
Oh yeah, that's it. You got it. Gravitation error rate.
Translating that literally would give you the number of universal gravitation anomalies, I would think.
I'm sure you'd be able to find it if you sifted through a physics dictionary.
Is that where you got from? The GE rate, an imbalance that contradicts the law of universal gravitation. Discovered by Isaac Newton, the law of universal gravitation is a fundamental force of nature that acts between all forms of energy and matter, i.e., anything that contains mass. It is commonly believed that the great number of strata layered upon the Earth's surface play a large part in this law. A typical example of something that disturbs local areas would be lava beds. This phenomenon can be found at the foot of Mount Fuji. How do you say that? Aokigahara? also known as the Sea of Trees, where there have been several recorded instances of compasses becoming unusable. Oh, you mean that thing where if you use a compass in specific spots, all it does is spin uncontrollably? Doesn't that happen at the south and north poles of the Earth? Like if you take a compass there, it just starts spinning endlessly. Doesn't that happen there? If you take it to the south and north pole? Because I feel like I've heard about that once. Studies have also shown that fossil beds, particularly rich in iron and calcium, are another type of stratum in which magnetism is repelled. Adding to the previous factors, magnetite is also believed to have a particularly strong influence on gravity. Magnetite? A type of mineral that is used as a material in magnets. It is black in color, has metallic luster, and the crystals have an octahedral shape. Okay. If magnetite, a naturally occurring magnet with an octahedral crystal structure, were to be found beneath the Earth in a quantity large enough to warrant being recognized as a dike, it would be as if the ground itself were a magnet. This would then result in an extremely high chance of the area producing minute gravitational deviations. The GE rate is the measurement of the gravitational values in a region in which such values have been distorted by the previously mentioned geological strata. When Ban's explanation concluded, the two men had been walking the entire time, and were just exiting onto Dogenzaka. The scenery surrounding them instantly turned bright and dazzling.
I've heard that the average GE rate in Shibuya is one of the highest recorded in the world.
So lower is normal?
Have you heard that there's been cases in which a ball placed at the foot of a hill goes right up all by itself?
Are you serious? Sua, who had been listening in utter silence up till now, showed his surprise with a slightly exaggerated tone. Sounds like a world stripped straight out of a sci-fi flick.
You enjoy that type of stuff?
I'm not a big fan of Excuse me, sorry. I'm not a big fan of the convoluted ones. The large-scale epics are what I'm really into.
It's all Greek to me.
The explanation sounds pretty darn plausible, but it's still fairly hard to believe. I never heard of a GE rate before today. Yeah,
Don't act like your ignorance applies to everyone. The gumshoe needs an objective view of the facts.
that's true, but what Sua said was equally true. The research into the GE rate was minimal, and it certainly was not something that would be taught to an everyday college student. Ban himself had not even been aware of it until a few weeks ago. For starters, you still haven't answered the most important question. So, the gravity of Shibuya is unbalanced, I got that, but what does that have to do with the young people being attracted to here? Oh, wait, yeah, I forgot, that's the whole point of what you were talking about. Why would that attract young people here? What?
There's a surprisingly big casual relationship between gravity and humans, you know. Did you know that the biorhythms of all living things are affected by the moon's gravitational pull? It ain't just the tides.
I've heard about how the moon has an effect on sea turtle spawning.
Yeah, something like they only lay eggs on the night of a full moon. But it's not just sea turtles. Corals and other species that only spawns on full moon nights.
Oh yeah, that's the thing where it looks like it's snowing on the ocean, right?
It's been scientifically proven that gravity is much stronger on full moon nights.
Really? I wonder what that is. Strange.
So naturally, this ends up affecting humans as well.
And that's why you're saying that that young people get drawn into Shibuya? What, like with childbirth?
Not just childbirth. Biorhythms, like I said before.
So what you're saying is that the biorhythm of young people around the world becomes attracted to Shibuya because of how strange its gravitational pull is. Or its gravitational errors or whatever. Gravitation error rate or whatever. And the full moon is when it makes it the strongest, causing the strongest likelihood for young people to gather.
They're closely related to normal physiological phenomena, of course, but they also have an effect on traffic accidents, illnesses, appetite, libido, stuff like that. You know how they say blood rushes to your head when you get excited? That's from the moon's gravitational pull.
That's a bit of a stretch. That's like saying that the feelings of an individual people don't matter and that's all the moon's fault.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. It has to do with the thing called crowd psychology. The moment someone arrives in this town, they might feel exhilarated or maybe like doing something a little reckless.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that... Are you maybe implying that this has something to do with the occurrence of the New Gen murders?
This then likely applies to people's reactions to the string of New Gen incidents. All the folk in this town have seen the news or more or less having the same reaction. Every last one of them is enjoying it. They all revel in the feeling that it'll never happen to them. That's just somebody else's problem.
So, are you saying that the GE ray is also responsible for this type of crowd psychology?
The possibility's there. It's subconsciously ingrained into the minds of youngsters that, say, coming to Shibuya's a real hoot, man.
That's why so many young people are attracted to the city. Huh. I wonder if this has a... One thing that I do remember being said before was... Before the New Gen incidents occurred, there was an earthquake. Does this have anything to do with that earthquake at all? Could the earthquake have been what's changed this gravity enough to cause all this strange phenomenon? Sue really is a fast learner, Ban thought to himself. Impressed. The junior detective was still young, but that part of him truly was worthy of praise. In addition, what set him apart from other young people was that he did not just follow his seniors blindly. Whenever he had a question, or whenever he thought something did not make sense, he would always voice it, despite the fact that he was a junior in name. Now that we more or less have a handle on what the G rate is, how are we going to use it to catch the culprit? If these recent incidents were influenced by the G rate, it would be pretty strange if something similar hadn't happened over the past few centuries. Yeah, that would also imply that something like this probably would happen in at least, like, at a certain rate. Like, it would happen over time. Maybe not, like, maybe over the course of hundreds of years, sure, but surely would happen again and again.
Which means our next step is to get an expert to look into it. A specialist.
And is that what Nozomi's doing, that company? We've heard about Nozomi, and we've seen them, like, doing the dowsing as well. Are they also trying to look more into it? You're not gonna do it, sir?
Me? I'm just a detective.
Van smirked from ear to ear.
The only thing I plan on looking into is New Gen. Which is why I skipped out on work today, so I can measure the GE ray at the crime scene. If the crime scenes that we've had up until now all show abnormal GE rates, what do you think that might mean?
Oh, are you saying that you can predict where the crimes will occur if you can find out where abnormal GE rates are? Because if all the previous crimes occurred in areas where the GE rate is strange, then that means you can pinpoint and protect the areas where it could happen again, because all the crimes are happening in areas where the GE rate is strange. No way. Sue's eyes went wide, and he stopped dead in his tracks. It seems as if he had realized what Bam was trying to imply. You can basically guess where the culprit's going to act. Just look for the oddities in GE rate. The incidents all happen in places with abnormal GE rates? If that's true, then that means we can somewhat predict where the next crime will take place. Of course, that means you're going to have to protect a lot of different spots, but that's still better than nothing.
We don't know that for sure yet. That's why we're gonna have to have it investigated.
There was something lurking within this city. Something yet unknown, hidden deep beneath its flashy exterior. Perhaps it was akin to Pandora's box, something not meant to be touched by the hands of men. Thoughts such as these pervaded Ban's mind as he watched the pedestrians file down the streets of Shibuya. Oh boy. I feel like I'm going to turn up the audio just a Alright, this might make it a lot louder, but I'm not sure. These sorts, too, are guided by that will. The audio knob on this thing is very sensitive. I will say that. It is exceedingly sensitive. So, again, if it's weird, just bear with me today, okay? Okay. These sorts too are guided by that well. As soon as I heard those words, I knew I couldn't take it anymore. Turn this back up. There we go. That should do it. Excuse me for this, but this is a way I was testing about its peak. Okay, we can hear it. Sorry. Doing that sound for some reason allows me to test the peak. Fez had been going on and on about all these things I didn't care about, all while continuing to dodge what I'd actually asked her. I couldn't possibly care any less about some greater will or why Shibuya attracts young people or whatever else. There was only one thing I wanted to know. How do I get my hands on a D-sword? Mustering up my courage, I asked Fez that question. Tell me. Without changing her aloof expression, Fez gazed down at the D-sword she was holding. Despite how gigantic the sword was, she seemed to be handling it with incredible ease. Maybe she just had an absurd level of physical strength or something. It isn't something one can teach. Why not? Why is it that you'll go on and on about all this random shit, yet you can't tell me the most crucial thing I need to know? You must find it by yourself. I do not know of any methods. You don't know? Then how in the living fuck did you get the D-sword you're holding in your hand right now? However, D-swords can only be seen by those who possess the power. As I thought, yeah. No one else can see these except for those who actually own them. We only know of a couple people who have them. Obviously Fez, Sena, Rimi. At the very least, we've seen Rimi, or at least, well, actually no, at this point I can't even confirm if Rimi. We only saw Rimi have one in the intro cutscene, so I can't even confirm that currently she has one. But I think it's likely. And then, what was the girl's name? Kazue? The little blonde girl with the giant one, that's like twice her body size, I swear. She had one too. Oh. So... And of course, Takumi has to have one too if he's able to see others. So in other words, those without the power couldn't see them? But I could see extremely clearly. But then, what does she mean by the power? Was she saying I had supernatural powers? Like what the two Fezes in front of me had? You can see my sword, can you not? That can only mean one thing. If Shogun and you were destroying my life because of it, then I didn't want this stupid bullshit power. But I still did want a D-sword. Because it'd grant me salvation. Fez had said so. I'm starting to wonder if that salvation is really as good as they're making it sound. Is it salvation from a... what kind of salvation are we talking here? Salvation from the pain? Or salvation from a falsehood? Because if it's salvation from a falsehood, then I feel like it would only cause more pain. Stuff like the greater will and the reason why Shibuya attracted young people made no difference to me. I didn't want some random power, nor did I want to be roped into all this BS in any way, shape, or form. In order to escape the clutches of Shogun and Yua, I had to get my hands on a sword. Feel it. Feel the will chosen by the world. Fess's answer was as ambiguous as every other damn thing she said. Biting my lip, I tried desperately to think of any way I could extract information from her. But as a person who was terrible at talking to 3D people, I couldn't think of anything that'd be effective at all. I tried to pull from my bank of eroge situations, but everything that came to mind was fairly unsettling. Such as slipping her an okay, stop it. And I may or may not be extremely fucked up. You think? You're really realizing this now, Takumi? What is your name? Huh? Fess turned her back to me, then slowly began to walk deeper into the tunnel. I am Kishimoto Ayase. When she said that, I realized that we still hadn't introduced ourselves to each other yet. Nishijo Takumi. I couldn't see Fess, Ayase's expression from where I was. Why was she laughing? I didn't know. Let's meet again, Takumi. Ayase was moving farther and farther away. I fearfully turned my head to see what happened to the other Ayase, only to find out that she had disappeared without a trace. Had she literally disappeared? Or had she just walked out of the underpass? Ayase said that the other Ayase was a delusion. Maybe that was the power of the D-sword. I returned my gaze to the inside of the underpass, and right as I did, I saw that Ayase was going up the other staircase, which was about 50 meters deeper into the tunnel. Eventually, her figure disappeared completely, and now all that remained was the eerie silence of the underpass. I wasn't brave enough to yell after her. I was too exhausted to run after her, and I was overwhelmed with the feeling that it wasn't worth the trouble. In the end, all I could do was return home as cautiously as I could, making sure not to be spotted by Yua or the police on the way. Well, this is great. Great. Felt like it had been ages since I'd last been in my base, but in reality, it had only been half a day. I left my computer on, leaving my Ceraton screensaver to cast a pale light together with her smile across the dark room. I locked the door tightly from the inside and threw myself onto the sofa. When I closed my eyes, I couldn't help but remember everything that happened today. I couldn't believe even the police thought I was the culprit. They had it all wrong. There was absolutely no way I could have killed all those people. Investigate like you actually give a shit. This isn't a game. Otaku freaks like myself were ostracized by society, so they must have thought that they could just pin the crime on one of us and the public wouldn't even bat an eye. They couldn't actually catch the real culprit, so they wanted to save face by using me as a scapegoat. Damn it. What could I do to clear my name? The scene at A Cafe flashed before my eyes, sending a chill down my spine. There existed someone that was even more terrifying than the police. Yua. My enemy. I had been so unbelievably relieved that I hadn't heard anything from her recently. I had been growing more and more confident that she'd never contact me again. But today I realized that I'd been mistaken. In order to oppose them all, I needed a D-sword. I glanced at the cheap sword that was leaning against my PC desk. It was a fake. Ayase had said that only people with the power can see them. The day I'd bought my sword, Nanami had seen me with it. And unlike Ayase and Santa's swords, it didn't glow. Where would a real one be? I had to get my hands on one as soon as possible. If I didn't, I was doomed. Getting wrapped up in something this insane, it sucked so much. You have the ID. Multiple personalities. No, that's not true. That's impossible. Multiple personality disorders are supposed to be rare in Japan. You've been watching way too many goddamn movies, Yua. I don't have multiple personalities. There's no proof of that at all. Shogun. Not true. It's not true. The chat log is consistent with what Yua told me. That's all fabricated. It can't be considered proof. There's no proof that I didn't have multiple personalities. My doctor never diagnosed me with multiple personalities. But that very doctor, Dr. Takashino, is now gone for some unknown reason. Me! I know that better than anyone! But I don't actually know myself. I felt chills on the nape of my neck. The usual presence. Someone was watching me. The unknown gaze. Whose eyes are those eyes? Yeah, that's right. It's Shogun. He's the killer. That's what's said in the chat log, right? And you as one of Shogun's underlings. New-gen cases were all Shogun. But does Shogun truly exist? Are you sure he isn't just a delusion?
僕
I'm normal.
な
I'm
まともだ
completely
まとも
normal,
なんだ
right?
そうでしょ
I clutch my head and I shout out to no one in particular. But what I got in reply was,
メールだよボケナス
You got mail, you big dum-dum.
Sarah? I sluggishly made my way over to the computer and checked my email. The sender was grim. I found something interesting was the subject line. It was probably just bait, and the contents of the email were meant to fuck with me. I didn't have the energy to deal with him personally right now, so I stuck to just reading the email. Found something interesting. Your password has been reissued. Nair-kun, you haven't joined the chat room at all lately. You haven't been on ESO either, so I had no choice but to email you. I would have told you to watch this video because it's seriously fucked. I know what you're thinking. It's probably just Grim fucking with me, but no. It was recorded by the new Gen perp. The net's going absolutely insane over it. Hurry up and watch it before you miss the hype. Oh god, did the fifth crime occur? A video. They've been recorded by the new Gen culprit. My fingertips on the mouse began to tremble. I couldn't take my eyes off the email. Does that mean the killer was in the video? Who was it? No. Was it me? I both wanted to see it and I didn't want to at the same time. This was the proof. Proof that I wasn't the killer. Or proof that I was the killer. Which one it would be, I didn't know. It was a gamble. Feeling my heart begin to beat faster and faster, I moved the mouse cursor and hovered over the link. But I couldn't work up the courage to click the URL.
私
I want to help
あな
you.
たを助けたい
Shut up. Don't treat me like a criminal. Don't act like you feel sorry for me. I didn't do it. You were the one on the criminal side, Yua. In an intense fit of rage, I clicked on the URL. It was a YouTube video. Dive. Group dive. Madness in Shibuya. Group dive. Whose eyes are those eyes? It was a YouTube video. The word loading appeared in the video window.
僕じゃない僕じゃ
It's
ない
not
僕
me.
じゃない
It's not me. 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 In reality, it only took about 10 seconds for the video to load, but those 10 seconds felt like an eternity to me. Eventually, it finished loading and the video started playing. It was a video of a very dark place. The background was pitch black. Maybe it was indoors. I leaned my head in close to the monitor, trying my best to parse the information on the screen. It was dark, and therefore hard to see, but there were several men and women there. They were all making a ton of noise. Maybe because the bitrate was too low, or maybe because the people in the video were too distraught, but I couldn't make out a single thing they were saying. Every once in a while, whenever someone screamed violently, the sound would clip horribly. After watching for a bit longer, I was able to determine that there were 5 people in the video. If you include the cameraman, it would be 6. The cameraman didn't enter the frame at all. Because of how dark it was, the faces of the 5 people were just barely visible. As though to comfort one another, they were caressing each other's heads, patting each other's shoulders, and hugging. I could also hear the high-pitched sobbing of a girl, likely overcome with emotion. It was definitely bizarre, but how did this video have any connection to New Gen? Was the person filming this really the New Gen culprit? At the very least, I knew I had no memory of recording something like this. Wait. And then, after a short while, the camera, or rather the person holding the camera, began to slowly move forward. Did you hear that? I don't know if it was audible on the recording, but I heard a wheelchair squeak. The same as what Shogun, you know, like the rusty wheelchair that Shogun was in. The 5 subjects, who were about 5 meters away from the cameraman, gradually grew larger and larger. The picture was fairly grainy. Maybe the original image data was re-encoded at an extremely low bitrate in order to reduce its size. A modern video camera should have night vision function, so I wondered why the cameraman hadn't made use of it. Could it have been an older camera? As soon as I thought that, the camera suddenly pans to the left and then to the right, showing the surrounding scenery. What I initially thought was just the pitch-black darkness of a room was actually the night sky. In other words, the video had been recorded outdoors. As for the reason why there wasn't a single building or anything, it was because the video had been taken on the roof of a skyscraper. The 5 people were on the edge of the roof of a very tall building. Right behind them was the ledge, and right below that ledge was the glittering nightscape of Shibuya that could only be seen at high altitudes.
これ
This is... Finally, I understood. I understood what this video was. I finally understood why it was said to have been recorded by the new Gen culprit.
集団
The group dive.
ダイブ
The locked room mystery in which a group of 5 men and women jumped from the roof of Cornelius Tower. The sole fact that remained unclear about New Gen was whether or not this specific incident was a murder case, or a group suicide. If this video was of the 5 people who jumped to their deaths, then that would mean there had been a 6th person at the scene when the incident occurred. The 5 people shown in the video hadn't just been making noise for the sake of it. They were all slumped down on the ground, crying and shouting as they huddled together. They all refused to give up, despite the fact that they were soon fated to die. One was shaking their head in denial as they cried. One was clutching their hair tightly as they fell to their knees, their shoulders heaving with each sob. One was pleading with the cameraman as they sobbed, asking why they were doing this. One had already gone mad and was laughing as tears streamed down his face. It was a rabid, violent desire to stay alive. A fervent, intense plea to not die. Disconsolate indignation that screamed, "Why is this happening to us?" Innumerable raw emotions swirled around the group. In a bizarre juxtaposition, the cameraman's voice was never once heard. The cameraman was eerily calm.
やめろ
Stop it.
やめろ
Stop it! No matter how much I pleaded with the footage that had been taken nearly a month ago, nothing was going to change. I knew full well that I was meaningless, but I subconsciously screamed at my monitor all the same.
こいつら
These
みんな
people don't want
死
to
にたく
die.
なんかないんだぞ
A wheelchair. With no possible way for my words to reach them, the cameraman was holding and moved even closer to the 5 people. Terrified, all 5 of them had tried to crawl away, to get away from the camera. But they couldn't. Right behind them was the very edge of the helipad. There was no guardrail of any kind. The 5 of them had nowhere to go. If they moved back even a little bit further, they would fall. Refusing to heed the 5's pleas for their lives, the cameraman continued to focus solely on filming, as if to agitate the 5 all the more. It drove them completely to the edge, to the point where they took no further action at all. Then, without any sort of cue, nor any form of signaling one another, the 5 people who had all been crying out in grief suddenly fell silent. Then, they all stood up. The wind on the rooftop of the Cornelius Tower was powerful. Beckoned by the wind, the 5 of them nearly staggered. If there was even the slightest misstep, they would fall. As if in preparation for such a thing, the 5 men and women all joined hands, seemingly in resignation. They grasped each other's hands tightly.
よせ
Stop! Stop it!
やめろ
You're
謝る
crazy! Silence. It seemed to me that even the sound of the wind whipping violently through the air had stopped. All I could hear was the sound of cars driving along Shudo Expressway at the foot of the building. Even then, the cameraman did not make a single move. And then, a single person, among the 5, whispered,
その目誰の目
"Whose eyes are those eyes?" I froze in front of the monitor, feeling as though my heart was being strangled by an ice-cold hand.
なんで
Why?
なんでまた
Why
その
those
言葉
fucking
なん
words
だ
again?
よ
Was this supposed to be the first new Gen case? Whose eyes are those eyes have been the dying message from the vampire case, and that one came fourth. This didn't make any goddamn sense. Paying no mind to the screaming inside my head, the video continued to play. Hand in hand, the 5 men and women slowly stepped out into the empty air, almost as if there was a path laid out before them. And then, just like that, the 5 fell into the nightscape of the big city. I bit my lip and covered my eyes. Ugh. The group dive hadn't been a mass suicide. It too was a murder case. The culprit had been there when it happened. And as for who'd filmed the video, I knew who it was. Mixed in with the sound of the strong wind on the rooftop. Mixed in with the sounds of the 5 people crying out in grief. Mixed in with the blaring horns from Shudo Expressway below. I was certain I'd heard one particular faint sound. It was the sound of creaking steel. A sound that could only be heard when the cameraman was moving forward. The sound of a wheelchair.
あの時
What appeared in
僕
front of
の
me
前
back
に
then
現れたのは
was real.
現実だったんだね。
Shogun.
カメラの目
The
線が
camera's
低
line of
すぎだ
sight
よ
was far too low.
将軍
Shogun. Was it really Shogun, though? Chapter 4, D-Sword. Finished. Chapter 5, Delusion. To no one's surprise, a leaked video of the group dive exploded. Grimm had told me that the entire internet was going insane, and lo and behold, he wasn't lying. A huge chunk of that channel was now convinced that all 4 new gen murders had been committed by the same person. Whose eyes are those eyes? Is this a new gen killer signature move? The guy who upped it on YouTube has to be the perp. We at whose eyes are those eyes is so freaking sweet. Okay, I'll report that immediately. Whoa, those eyes are... TLDR, whose eyes are those eyes was written out at the scene of the vampire, yeah? That means there's a connection between the first and the last case, despite all the people saying they had nothing to do with each other, which then means that the man-child and crucifixion cases also have to be connected. Damn, I'm getting way too into this. What does the tips list say? Too long, didn't read. Yeah, we all know about this. Whoa, that was fast. Whose eyes are those eyes? Also, whose eyes are those eyes? The first appearance was at the vampire case, so it couldn't possibly have copied the group dive. Sorry, I was saying something. No, don't look at Lil Smoke. Whose eyes are those eyes every day? I saw the video, but it looks fake as shit. Some actors just did it for views. I bet one Perica on it. You twats really ought to stop using whose eyes or whatever the f so often. The killer just wants attention and you're giving it to him. The same dude who did all the new gen murders. Whose eyes are those eyes? Now, the tower in that video is actually just 2 meters tall, and there's a trampoline or something below it, Lamau. Agreed. If that phrase keeps being a trend, there will keep being more murders. Y'all need to tone it the fuck down. It's not just a meme anymore. Whose eyes are those eyes? I live in Shibuya. Obligatory don't look. The Mewtwo video. It's topping the charts. The view count. It's skyrocketing. It's so brutal. Don't look, guys, Lamau. Time to make the MHKA news top report. Woo! Anything from the perp behind whose eyes are those eyes yet? Breaking news taking over every station. Woohoo! Except Toe TV. Lol. The news on TV was just as erratic. Like 140 had said, every available station, save for Toe TV, had been interrupted by the breaking news where they'd played the leaked video on loop. The broadcast had lasted for about an hour. It was pretty shocking to see that the footage had actually been broadcast across the entire country. Of course, all the stations censored the part where they dived off the building at the end, but it was still extremely impactful. The opinions of those on TV were more or less the exact same as everyone's online. They all attributed the 4 new gen cases to the same culprit. And again, that wasn't really much of a surprise. They'd finally found a common denominator between them after all. Whose eyes are those eyes? It became a popular phrase all throughout Shibuya. The phrase had first been shown to the world when details behind the fourth case, the vampire, were shared. People then learned that the victims of the group dive had said it as well, even though it occurred a month before the vampire case. In the 4 incidents that occurred so far, it had been used in both the first and the last one. It had to mean something. It made the theory that a single person was behind the murders all the more probable. The police then held a press conference stating that they intended to identify the person who posted the video as soon as they could. A number of politicians commented that the actions of the culprit were completely deplorable and that they needed to be apprehended immediately. The YouTube video had been removed by a moderator less than 3 hours after it was uploaded, but by then it was too late. Ad Channel had already gotten their hands on it, and from there, nothing could have stopped it from being re-uploaded and spreading like wildfire. And then, just before midnight, the following facts had been revealed through a police statement. The group dive video was uploaded from a computer located in a Shibuya manga cafe known as A Cafe. It was uploaded from a specific private room in the facility, room number 37. Once again, it's the same computer that Takumi uses. Why is it that Shogun can seemingly only act when Takumi would be able to act on the computer? I sat paralyzed in my seat, my head hanging low as I hugged myself tightly. Without realizing it, I had started eavesdropping. I was becoming hypersensitive to the voices coming from my surroundings. I overheard a lot of conversations, and unsurprisingly, the group dive video was the topic on everyone's minds. Some girls were even jokingly saying to each other, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" I bit my lip and let my gaze wander into the surface of my desk. That video was evidence. Evidence that Shogun actually existed. Evidence that I hadn't killed anyone. It proved that I didn't have multiple personalities. That the old-looking man in the wheelchair was the new gen killer. But why would Shogun even upload it? Why would he hand himself being the killer when the culprit's identity had been shrouded in mystery so far? Only two explanations made sense to me. One, Shogun was showing off by killing people because it amused him, which was pretty likely considering that time when he appeared in front of me. Or he was trying to provoke me. For some reason, Shogun and his underling Yuo were doing everything in their power to fuck with me. I didn't know the reason why. I just knew that they were trying to frame me as a new gen culprit. At this point, even the police were probably suspicious of me. Shogun was trying to corner me. Did you receive my message? You must awaken. Quickly. Because if you don't, many more people are going to die. Is Takumi the killer? Again, at this point, I don't know what's real. What if half the things that play in that video were just a delusion? Anything that's happening right now could just be a delusion. And I wouldn't know the difference. No one would. Takumi most certainly sure shit wouldn't. Don't forget. You mustn't run away. Run away from what? The truth? Are we actually the killer? When he appeared in front of me, that was what he said. It felt like he'd been trying to intimidate me, and that he was basically saying, "I'm going to kill you too. Don't you dare run away." And now, he totally blindsided me by uploading that video and making sure it spread all throughout Japan. There was no doubt that Shogun had moved to his plan to the next phase. It had been naive to think that I wasn't being targeted anymore. If anything, it'd be more accurate to say that his plotting against me had moved from passive to active. It was now finally in full swing. I was terrified. Especially of that video. Shogun had killed 5 high schoolers without even lifting a finger, despite being even worse off physically than me. If all the new gen cases were actually his doing, then all those other gruesome murders, the man-child, crucifixion, the vampire, had all been enacted by that very same frail body. Or maybe you had helped him out. Sana mentioned before that if you were able to control a person's 5 senses, you would have something along the lines of like you could control a person's 5 senses. If you were able to do that, you could effectively make them do whatever you wanted. You can make them see reality in a way that made them do whatever it is you need them to do, right? So what if his plan is making other people do what he desires? I mean, think about the thing with Rimi. She has no idea about the murder of the crucifixion. Her eyes looked dead when she did it. She was kind of just like a zombie or something. Is it possible that Rimi was being controlled? You know, I just thought of another thing that actually seems odd and actually might fit into this. Remember back with Nanami? There was that moment with Nanami where she almost just walked out into the middle of the street and got hit by a car. If it wasn't for Takumi, she would have gotten hit by the car. When Takumi questioned why she did it, why she just suddenly walked out into the middle of the street, she said that she thought she heard mom and dad calling to her from across the street. When in reality it was just some random guy not even doing that. It was just a guy standing there. So, was that another case of a person's senses being controlled? Was Nanami being controlled, then? In any case, I didn't have any faith that I'd be able to defend myself against people who commit such horrible atrocities. Just thinking of them sent chills down my spine. Chills that combined with the red-hot anger I was feeling. Why was I being targeted like this? What did I do to deserve it? And there was also that message. Whose eyes are those eyes? If I wasn't careful, I would start trembling uncontrollably. To keep that under control, I had to keep my body from relaxing. I had to always be aware of my surroundings and be ready to bolt the second I sensed someone approaching. I didn't know which Shogun or Yua would show themselves again. Hell, I had no guarantee that Yua was Shogun's only underling. Maybe even my own classmates were under his influence. Their laughter and idle chatter acting as mere camouflage until just the right moment. I had to find a way to parry surprise attacks like the one at Cafe yesterday. If I didn't, I'd be killed next time for sure. I need to get a D-sword ASAP. The only way to get out of this was to get a D-sword. I'd internalize what Ayase and Sena had said, and I'd searched online about it, and it all had me convinced. Getting my hands on a D-sword would save me. The night before, I desperately tried to gather information on D-swords while keeping an eye on the new gen shitstorm, but my research barely bore any results. I cradled my head, tearing at my greasy hair. How was I supposed to find a D-sword? You must find it by yourself. I know not of it any methods. I also had said that, but that was barely even a hint. My thoughts weighed heavily on me. I was starting to freak out. My heart was steadily getting crushed by my anxiety. I need to hurry. To hurry and find a D-sword. Whatever it took, I had to find one. If I didn't, I'd be done for becoming New Gen's next victim. I had to find one. I needed to find out how. I had no clue how you were supposed to get one. I need some kind of hint. Something. Anything. I had to figure out fast, or I'd lose my chance at finding it. Was I even capable of finding one? There was no time to be at school. It was my own life, or graduating. I didn't need to debate which one was more important. And yet, why was I... Sensing someone approaching me, I quickly raised my head and braced myself for contact.
Whoa, talk about making me jump.
Rimi was standing there, blinking repeatedly as if she'd been stunned by my sudden movement. I made you jump? Stop scaring me like that. All the stress in my body released at once, and I crumpled on top of my desk with a big sigh.
Are you okay, Taku?
Fulfilling her usual quota, Rimi peered into my face. I hurriedly lowered my eyes.
You look kind of pale, and you're sweating buckets, and your eyes are bloodshot.
Was Rimi with me or against me? An ally or an enemy? After she'd saved me, I'd grown a lot less wary of her. But there were still a ton of unanswered questions that I'd yet to figure out. Like, why'd she been covered in blood at the scene of the crucifixion? Or how we were supposed to be such good friends and that we'd been classmates since our first year, yet I had no recollection of it.
Are you feeling okay? Do you need to go to the nurse?
Rumi tilted her head slightly, a worried expression on her face. No, I'm fine. I I turned away from her. I couldn't say it to her face. When the classes for the day finally ended, I felt like every ounce of energy had been drained from my body. Even during class, all I'd done was remain on high alert, repeatedly scanning my surroundings. I hadn't slept since yesterday, but staying this vigilant kept me wide awake. The school day felt like an eternity, and the sheer amount of time I'd spent there sent me spiraling into a deep depression. Why is it that the way we perceive time changes depending on our mood? Some say that time flows at a constant rate, but that might not actually be true. The speed of time changes depending on each person's subjective perspective. I've always theorized that it's a conspiracy to homogenize humanity's understanding of the concept of time by implementing units like seconds and hours, all so they can deceive people into forgetting that perception of time varies from person to person. And building off that theory, if the length of time is dependent on each person's perception, then conversely, doesn't that mean that the flow of time can be controlled at will? As I thought about that, I remembered Sana talking about controlling other people's wills. And conversely, with this technology, even those who have been blind from birth will be able to accurately view anything that the eyes can actually perceive. This is made possible by using video equipment such as video cameras. The video data from a camera is converted into electrical signals that are sent directly to the brain, causing the person to observe that sequence of images. Conversely, that would mean converting the images that a person observes into electrical signals, then sending them to equipment that can render video. The aforementioned equipment didn't have to be a video camera either. For example, what would happen if you connected a person to a hard disk recorder and then showed them recordings of someone's vacation? What if instead of real-life recordings, you showed them an anime? Technically, anime is 2D and therefore delusionary. But people who are blind from birth have never seen anything from the 3D world, so if they were shown an anime and told that this is how the world is, then they would believe that the 2D world is reality, right? So that person, that delusion would be their reality. A delusion perceived as reality. Here's another example. If person A sent an image from their brain to a hard disk recorder that processed it, and transmitted the image to person B's brain, then person A's delusion would become person B's reality. Delusion becoming reality. In theory, it was possible. Holy shit, I was a genius now. I was over the moon by how brilliant my theory was. Maybe that was how I had acquired a D-sword. Ayase had said that they had something to do with delusions, hadn't she? Alright, I should hurry up and go home so I can take a look. I stood up abruptly, threw my bag over my shoulder, and looked toward the door to the classroom. Only to find her standing there, looking at me. Oh dear. Oh no, this is gonna cause a lot of problems. I instinctively screamed. At least half my classmates were still in the classroom. Every one of their icy gazes pierced me at once. Stop. Run. Don't look at me. Run away. Please don't look at me. Get out of here. In a pure state of panic, I blew past my classmates and burst out of the classroom via the door Yua wasn't standing at. With no real destination in mind, I found myself in the courtyard. But the second I set foot in it, I was hit by the strong urge to vomit. I tried to hold it back, but it was no use. I fell to my knees and spewed out all the contents of my stomach. Okay. My vision blurred. It was hard to breathe. The aftertaste was absolutely vile. I must have been way more maxed than I thought I was. It must have been because of the all-nighter I'd pulled. As I wiped the corners of my mouth, I looked all around me restlessly, but I couldn't see a soul. However, the shadowy corners and the blind spots I'd usually never pay attention to had become terrifying to me. I began to think that Yua, her Shogun, might be hiding in them. The second my brain came up with that, I could no longer take a single step. Someone... save me. I wanted to cry. I felt nauseous all over again. I ended up vomiting, but I dry heaved several times. The pain made me cry even harder. I was nearly sobbing at this point. But then suddenly someone's hand began to gently rub my back. Terrified, I turned around.
大丈夫
You're okay.
Rimi was there.
大丈夫だよ
Everything's gonna be okay.
I wasn't being condemned for feeling this way. No, her words were a tender affirmation.
私は
Because I'm on your side, Taku.
タクの味方だから
She didn't even so much as grimace at the smell of my vomit. She didn't show any signs of disdain when she saw my face covered in tears or snot, nor when she saw the vomit still clinging to the corners of my mouth. She simply gave me a gentle smile, reassuring me that it would all be okay. She drew closer to me. She continued rubbing my back gently. Why was it that before, and even now, every time I thought I needed to be saved, Rimi would always heroically appear in front of me? Right now, Rimi was right here. It reassured me. I felt better. Before I even realized what was happening, my true feelings began to pour out. Despite the fact that I never talked about myself.
助けて
Save me.
一人は
Being alone
怖い
is so scary. Maybe that was why I bothered coming to school. Up until now, I'd always thought I'd be way better off alone. Of course, even now, it was still terrifying to talk to others. I wasn't at all confident in my ability to actually talk to anyone, but with Shogun and Yua trying to destroy my life, I'd never been so anxious, scared, and alone. I want someone to be there for me. It didn't even need to be nice to me. I just want someone to be present.
一人は
I'm scared
怖い
of being alone.
だったら
Well, if you're scared of being alone,
私が
I'll stay by your
一緒に
side,
いてあげる
so you won't have to be.
Those words held no ill will, no hesitation, no irresolution.
さすがに
Though of course I
24
can't be
時
here
間
there
ずっと
all
は無
the
理だよ
times.
Her shy gaze suddenly moved up toward the sky. Her eyes were looking so far away. Just what could she be looking at in that sky?
朝
We'll go to
一緒に
school in the
学校行
morning.
って学校では
Talk about whatever
休み
comes
時
to
間
mind in
どうでも
between
いいこと
classes.
話してお昼休みは
Eat
一緒
together
に
at
ご飯食べ
lunchtime.
て夕方
And at the end of the day, we'll head back home.
帰るついでに
Sometimes
たま
stopping
に
by
ど
a
こ
shop
か
or
の
two on
お
the
店
way
に寄っ
back.
たりしてタクの部屋で
Then when we do get back,
ちょっとだけおしゃべりして
we'll chat for a bit in your room.
それで
And then when
Mata
we're all
ashita
tuckered out,
ne
we'll say goodbye with a nice wave and see you tomorrow.
そんなのでいいね
If you're fine with that, I can definitely go the
いくら
distance.
でもしてあげるよそういうの
I've always wanted to be that
結構
person for
憧れ
someone.
なんだ
Wasn't that, almost like being in a relationship? I was stunned. She was completely serious. I could see it on her face.
どうし
So
て
why?
どうして
Why would you
そ
go
こま
that
でして
far?
くれるの
それは
Because
Stretch. Sorry. Because? A flag if I'd ever seen one, right? Because I love you, Taka. I could see it coming from a mile away. That had to be what she was going to say, right? Granted, I'd have no clue why Rimi would have fallen for me. No, wait. This shit had to be bait. Something similar happened before. With Yua. With her, it had all been nothing more than deception, ending with me drowning into the depths of despair. So I couldn't get my hopes up. I had to prepare for the worst. It was possible that Rimi too was an enemy.
石
Bishi.
She suddenly saluted me. I was taken aback by the suddenness of it, and my mind shot to the possibility that she was about to reveal her true self. And yet, all that I saw in Rimi's face was that same bright, gentle smile.
そんなの
Because
友
we're
達だ
friends,
と
of course.
決まってるでしょ私にしてみれ
The
ば
way I see it, it'd be weird if I didn't help you, you know?
当然なのどうしてと
Well,
か
there you go.
寂しいこ
That's
と
why.
言わ
So
ない
no more being a sad sap, Taku.
分かった
Understood?
Mhm. Because we were friends. If she'd said because I love you, Taka, and this is how I'm gonna show it, it would have felt like my life had begun anew. But even if we'd be friends, that alone made me incredibly happy. Having someone being kind to me, having someone do things for me without expecting anything in return. I couldn't believe how happy it made me. It might have been the very first time I'd ever felt like that.
But above all else, it made me realize that I wasn't alone. To me, Rimi's existence was my salvation. The nausea I'd felt earlier had finally subsided, and I was feeling much better. Here, will you use this? Rimi held out a vermilion handkerchief. It had a faint floral scent. I meekly accepted it, but I was hesitant to use it. I'm starting to wonder if Rimi herself is just one giant delusion, suddenly appearing out of nowhere. I wonder if she's in a way just one huge delusion on of her own.
I
don't mind if you get dirty. Heck, why don't you just keep it? There is the one thing that... there is actually another thing that makes me wonder if she is just one giant delusion. It's the way she looks. I've been neglecting to say it, but it's always been in the back of my mind. Doesn't she just look like Sarah? You know, the anime girl that Taka keeps, like, fawning over. Doesn't she look just like her? So, if that's really why, like, it could be that maybe Rimi is just a delusion conjured up by Takumi's mind. As for why, I don't know. Maybe in order to try and keep itself sane? The mind can do weird things in order to try and keep itself in its own, at least perceive itself as sane. Thank you. I felt guilty about it, but I ultimately decided that I would accept her generosity. I wiped off the vomit that had stained the corners of my mouth with the handkerchief. It was the first time I'd ever received a present from a girl that wasn't a family member. I wasn't so sure about calling it a present, though. For me, as someone who was so isolated and helpless, even a simple thing like this felt like an irreplaceable treasure to me. I felt so delighted, so relieved that I nearly started to cry all over again. Should we mosey on home then? Her voice was so carefree. We'll head back together. Apparently, she'd already intended to make good on what she said before, that she'd stay by my side. Not that I'd told her whether I want her to or not yet. But it wasn't like I had any intention of saying no. Being alone terrified me. I didn't want to be alone. As I was now, I had no one to rely on but Rimi. However, I still couldn't say that I was stable now, even with Rimi with me. On the way back, I chose to take a different route than usual, walking cautiously all the way back. I couldn't stop trembling. Every corner with even an inch of shadow seemed dangerous. Every time I got to any kind of intersection, I was tormented by illusions of Yua or Shogun waiting for me at the end of it, making me freeze in place. Whenever that happened, Rimi would take over. She would look over toward the end of the intersecting road, and when the coast was clear, she'd nod to me. It's okay. There's no one there. Relieved, I followed after her. Everything she'd done without a hint of irritation. Say, can I ask you something? What the heck happened back there? I was slightly hesitant to tell her. If I said something here, Rimi could become a target for Shogun. I would get her involved. Oh, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have... No. I'll tell you. My mouth was already starting to move. I definitely didn't feel comfortable with the prospect of getting her involved. But if I didn't explain to her what was happening here, she wouldn't be able to understand the gravity of the situation. For the sake of my well-being, I had to turn a blind eye to the possibility that it might put her in danger. She'd been the one who said she'd stay by my side, so I was sure she'd be fine with it. So I told her everything. I told her that Shogun was the actual new gen culprit. That Yua was one of his underlings. That they were both stalking me. What had happened in front of 107 the other day. I laid it all bare, albeit not without a share of stuttering. I told her about the time Shogun appeared before in a wheelchair. Rimi's lips pursed, and she began to ponder. I had always wanted to ask her about it back then. Seemed like now was as good a time as any. I wonder if I saw anything like that. An old man in a wheelchair. She certainly didn't sound like she had. Just try to remember.
大切なことだ。
It's really important.
でも
Remy frowned, almost like she was hesitant to say what was on her mind.
そもそも
For starters, the
あ
Shibuya
の時
Station Plaza
渋
wasn't
谷の
empty.
駅前
Far
が
from
無
it.
人だった
You know that,
なん
right?
てこといつもと
It
同
was
じ
the
だ
same
った
as always. So that was what Remy had seen back then. I was hoping that she and I would agree on what we'd seen, but I guess not. Remy. Or me. Which one of us had seen what the area was actually supposed to look like? Had I been wrong about what I'd seen after all? Had that empty Shibuya been nothing more than a delusion of mine? But if it was, then there was a small discrepancy. An old man had appeared in that empty Shibuya, a Shogun. What was the explanation for that? If the Shibuya being empty part was a delusion, then Shogun could be a delusion as well.
駅前って
There were a whole
人が
bunch of
多い
people
で
in
し
front
ょ
of the station, so it'd be kind
だ
of
から
hard to notice one
車
guy
椅
in
子
a
の人がい
wheelchair.
てもなかなか要するに
So,
見てない
yeah,
ってこと
sorry. I didn't see anybody like that.
ごめんね
Sorry.
役に立て
I
な
wish
く
I
て
could help. At the very least, I knew Shogun himself wasn't a delusion. At first, I thought he was just a delusion, but ever since the group dive video had come out, my perception of him had swapped to the exact opposite. Shogun was real. He existed in reality. But the empty Shibuya, meanwhile, it could have just been a delusion. And in reality, the front of the station had been overflowing with people, just like it always was. I was the only one who observed something different, a different set of scenery than everyone else. But how could that be possible?
ねえそれより
Putting all that
お願
aside,
いがあるんだ
you
けど
mind if I ask a
いい
favor? Huh? Remy joined her hands together in a prayer-like gesture.
CD を買いに
There's
行
a
きたいん
CD I
だ
really want to buy,
せっ
and
か
since
く
we
こ
come
こ
all
ま
this
で
way,
来たから
I'd like to make a
ちょ
real
っと
quick
寄ってい
stop.
きたいんだけどいいかな
Would you be okay with that? I really wanted to get back to my base as soon as possible. The reason I'd taken such a long detour is because I was afraid of the possibility that Yua or Shogun might have been ready to ambush me. It wasn't so I could go on some shopping spree. But if I were to refuse after all that, she might end up going back on her promise to stay by my side. And if I were to fuck up badly enough, she could get angry and leave by herself. What the hell should I do? This sucked. I needed Remy to stay with me. I wasn't sure I could make it to my base alone. In the end, I wasn't able to refuse. So I did what I had in order to survive and stuck as close as possible to her. I guess it was reasonable to think that Yua wouldn't attack me in a public place like this. But I was more afraid that they might have been hiding among the crowd. Every time I would almost bump into someone, I would scream inside my head.
パトカーだ
Police cars? Remy's words frightened me. I quickly retreated behind her. Protect Shibuya from terrorist. Oust the criminal. Remy was right. There were two police cars parked on the road, and right next to them were 3 police officers in uniform. The police had been pursuing me. Obviously, the basis behind it was a completely false accusation, but the incompetent police didn't know that. Those cops may have been searching for me too. Or so I thought, but that apparently wasn't the case. The cops' gazes were fixated on the crowd of people marching down the street like they owned it. Were they protesters or something? They were carrying these giant signs and flags, and they were wearing the typical sashes and headbands you see among these kinds of people. There was a child marching along with his parents, holding hands with both of them. He looked like he had no idea where he was, and he was wearing a t-shirt with the words, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" written on it in permanent marker. I bit my lip.
何のデモだ
I
ろう
wonder what
ね
they're protesting. The people marching were of all ages and genders. Their march was mostly silent and solemn, but at times they all echoed their chants. Drive the devil out of Shibuya. Expel his demons from this place.
悪魔
Demons? On the sign were a number of different things, such as drive the devil out of town or protect Shibuya from terrorists. It must have been some kind of protest against the New Gen incident. There was no point in protesting against that. If they had the time to do that, then could they please just hunt down Shogun and kill him? Then I wouldn't need to worry about him anymore.
タク行こう
Taku, let's go. Clearly uninterested, Remy turned her gaze away from the protesters and quickly started walking toward the entrance to the CD shop. As soon as we entered the shop, Remy headed straight toward the indie section. Unlike the J-pop section, there weren't as many customers there. Remy stopped in front of shelf P, then started looking for the CD she wanted. But after a minute of browsing, her shoulder slumped. Darn it, I don't think they have it. In any group whose name started with P? Could that be Phantasm? Taku, do you know Phantasm? Yep, there we go. They're all the rage right now. Yeah, so it was them. How could I not know? I'd even gone to their concert, and I owned a CD. I nodded, and Remy smiled. I'm not really super in tune with this kind of stuff, so I only found out about them recently. I planned to borrow it from a friend, but no one I know seems to have it. That's why I figured I'd just go out and buy one for myself. It's been over a week since then, and I've been looking everywhere for it. But no matter where I go, it's always sold out. Are they ever gonna restock it? I own it. Remy's eyes went wide. You own it? You mean the CD? I showed her with a nod. And when I did that, Remy... Uh-oh. Put her hands on my shoulders. She suddenly brought her face closer to mine, which immediately made me flustered. The sweet smell of shampoo wafting from Remy's hair tickled my nose, and I felt my face turning red. Hey, Taku, let's make a deal. A deal? If you lend me that CD in return, I'll... She looked at me, her expression dead serious. I gulped. She what? What was she going to do? She was lost in thought. She probably didn't have anything in mind yet. I don't want you to... Huh? Oh, so you don't want to lend it to me? Remy's shoulders drooped in disappointment. Aw, I was looking forward to it. No, that's not what I meant. What I meant is, I don't want you to do anything for me. I'll just lend it to you. Taku. Thank you so much. A big smile shone to her face. She looked incredibly happy. She looked like she was halfway ready to clump me. Stop. Couldn't say I made girls happy very often, so it inadvertently made me happy too. I was glad I'd been brave enough to say it. Ishi, I'll take you up on that offer. Alright then, let's not waste any time. To Taku's house. Alright. Oh hey, we got here safely. I managed to make it back to base safely. Thanks to Remy, of course. One thing ended up catching me off guard, though. When we arrived, I'd asked her to wait outside while I cleaned my room, but she flat out refused. Come on, I saw exactly how dirty it was last time. There's no point in trying to clean it for me. You don't have to try and make it look like you're someone you're not. We're friends after all, right? Yeah, but I wish I knew what exactly that meant. Remy was completely absent from my memory, meaning I didn't really know her. Every once in a while, I'd find myself taken aback by how ridiculously friendly Remy was whenever she talked to me. It wasn't unpleasant or anything, but it only made it all the more clear how different we felt about each other. Again, she is a giant anomaly, and I think that she is a delusion created by Takumi to kind of try and, in his own mind, keep himself sane, quote-unquote. Because without someone like Remy here, he would have fallen and gone completely off the rails insane, I feel. His mind would have basically deteriorated, or begun to deteriorate to a serious degree. But by having Remy here, or having a delusion of someone like Remy, his mind's able to at least keep itself in some form safe, I guess. I would argue it's... I mean, whenever I say that it's keeping him sane, I say it with, like, quotation marks, or it's, like, 20 different times. Because it's like, obviously he's not sane if he's even deluding about this person in the first place. But I think you get what I mean. It's like, he's trying to protect himself in his mind. And the best way his mind can think of to protect itself is to create someone like Remy. And again, that would explain, it would explain like she looks just like Sarah does. The only oddity that comes to mind when regarding that, though, is when we first met her at the crucifixion. Assuming that it's true that Rimi is, like, being conjured up by Takumi's mind as a way of like, keeping himself happy, to some degree, then why would his mind first make the first appearance of this delusion a negative one? Why would his mind make that first appearance of Rimi be as a murderer? That's what I don't get. Assuming that she's a delusion, then why would she be a negative delusion first? Why would she be seen in a negative light first, rather than a positive one? That's the one thing I don't understand. The only thing that comes to mind as to why is potentially if Takumi is the killer, and then his mind wants to make itself believe that he's not the killer, then obviously it would have to conjure up a person that's not Takumi who would be the killer. In which case, the only thing it could think of was to create someone who looked like Sarah and make them the killer, quote unquote. Just so Takumi can believe that he himself is not the killer. Again, it's confusing. On that particular note, why was Rimi serious about there being no point in me cleaning my room? The floor was littered with empty boxed lunches, and the bed was piled high with Aroga cases. Aroga cases with not exactly the most SFW cover art. Either Rimi had nerves of steel, or she had no reason to feel on edge around me. But trying to figure out which it was only made me even more confused. Rimi, unaware how distressed I was, went to sit on the sofa, looking earnestly over the lyric booklet included in the Phantasm CD. I plopped down in my chair, and the tension flooded my body soon left after. Flooding. My mind was completely maxed after spending most of the day terrified. Yet, I wasn't feeling that exhausted. Maybe that was thanks to Rimi being there. Anyway, what should we do? Closing the lyric book, Rimi stretched her arms out high and sent a smile my way. What should we do? What were we supposed to do? She hadn't come here to hang out or anything. She just wanted me to lend her a CD. She was doing me a favor by staying with me, but what the hell were we supposed to actually do? Did we have to do anything? If we were in an eroge, we'd probably just Stop it. You know, actually, thinking about it, there's another reason why I think... There actually is another reason that, thing that could support why, the potential of Rimi just being one big delusion. I just thought of something. Rimi can sometimes just know what Takumi's thinking. Like, sometimes it almost seems as if Rimi is just reading Takumi's mind. But if she was a delusion, then of course she would know what's on Taku's mind, because she's also from Taku's mind. Of course she would know what he's saying in his head. Wait, stop. I really shouldn't be thinking about that right now. Even under the best circumstances, it was still a really tense situation, being alone in my room with a 3D girl and all. If I were to have some unwelcome delusions, I might suddenly shoot back to reality and end up saying something weird. Silence. Rimi was staring vacantly at the various manga scattered on the floor and the eroge piled up on the bed. Again, look at Rimi compared to, like, the Seraton poster back there. Again, she looks the exact same. Awkward. I knew that most of the awkwardness would dissipate if I just said something, but the only subjects I could think of were video games and anime. And I doubt that Rimi knew anything about either. Wouldn't it be more logical for Rimi to say something? She was the one who said she'd stay with me after all. This is gonna be a bad time if she actually expected me to lead the conversation. Jesus Christ, I really did suck with 3D girls. I was grateful to her for staying with me, but I couldn't handle his sheer unrelenting silence. The fact that the room barely had any light was also an issue. It gave off the illusion that the room was dark for some lewd reason. Unable to take it anymore, I turned to face my PC. I need to look up something. I've been thinking about it at school. It might end up giving me a hint as to how I'd be able to get my hands on a D-sword. Is it possible to translate images pictured in the mind to actual images? Using what Saina had told me about VR technology and people being electronic devices as a base, I began researching the subject.
何してるの?
What you up to? Remy stood up and approached my desk. Should I explain? But how to go about it? It'd take forever if I told her everything.
ねえねえ
Oh, come on, don't ignore me.
何して
What are
る
you
か
getting up
教
to
え
over
て
there?
よ
Seeing no reaction from me, Remy poked me in the back with her finger. I couldn't just ignore her, right? Yeah, it'd never be that easy.
君は
Do you
その
believe that
妄想が現
delusions
実にな
can
る
become
と
reality?
信じられる
As I entered a few keywords into the search bar, I spoke without looking at Remy. Instead, I pretended I was talking to Seraton.
妄想が
Huh?
現実
Like,
に
do I think delusions can become true? What?
無理で
That's
しょ
impossible.
もしそれができたら
If we could do
人は
that,
とっ
everybody'd
く
be
に万
omnipotent
能になっ
by
てる
now.
よ
That's a good point, actually. Delusions created a world in which any action, no matter how unrealistic, was possible. If they were to become reality, the unreal would become real. Unreality would become reality.
それがどうしたの
Why you ask?
それに近い
There's a
システ
system
ム
that
が
can
アメリカ
kind
で
of
その
do that. In America, there's
あるんだ
a patent that exists.
へえ
You're
冗
kidding,
談
right?
でしょ
I could feel Remy's doubtful scoff on my back. So in response, I showed her the image of the patent that Shiho had found for me.
これは
What's that?
特許の
Proof
証
that
拠
patent
写真
exists. A picture of it.
え
Huh?
本当
No
に
kidding. Remy leaned forward and brought her face close to the monitor. She was right up next to my face, peering intently at the screen.
わ
Oh no, I
私
speak
英語
in
って
English.
苦手すごいね
You can read it, Taku.
英語
That's
読め
so
るなんて
cool. She was way too close. She was so close I could see the glittering of her eyes as they reflected the light of the monitor. I got flustered all over again.
ねえねえ
So,
どういう
what's
こと
the
か
saying?
教えてよ
Seemed it had piqued her interest. I tried to avoid thinking about how close she was to me, and attempted to focus on Seraton in the monitor instead.
生まれながらに
By using a
盲目の
video
人
device,
でも
like a
ビデオ
video
カメラ
camera,
みたいな
even people who are blind
映像
at
機器を
birth,
通すことでそこに
they can
映る
see
景
the
色が見える
scenery
ように
through
なるんだ
it. That's
こ
a
れ豆知識
pro
な
tip.
ビデオカメラ
Wait,
が
like the camera could
目の代わ
basically
りって
be
いう
their
こと
eyes?
そう
Yeah, they call it
VR
VR
技術って言うん
technology.
だよ
How? It'd be amazing
も
if
し
that
本
was
当
real.
だったらすごいな
But it is. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Stan told me there's already been successful testings.
うん
Then
でも
again,
機械を使っ
what
て
does this
目
have
が
to do
見
with
えるよう
delusions
になる
becoming
のと
reality?
妄想が私
I think I might just be too dumb to
頭悪いからよ
understand.
くわかんないや
As I explained it to Remy, I tried searching for a number of keywords that might have been related, but I couldn't find anything. Even so, I kept on trying and typed more and more keywords.
映像機器に映る
The
景
scenery
色も
reflected
脳内
in
で思い浮かべた
video
妄想も
devices and the
電気信号だから
delusions that people have in their head are both electrical signals.
うん
Oh?
逆に考え
Think
る
about it the other way around.
脳内に電気信
Instead
号を
of
送るんじゃ
sending
なくて
electrical
脳
signals
内
to
か
the
ら電
brain,
気信号を送るって
think of it
考
like
えるんだ
sending them out of the brain.
ほほう
Huh. All I got were filler responses. She probably didn't understand a thing I was saying. Probably. I couldn't be bothered trying to explain everything in detail, so I just stopped trying. I had to concentrate on my research. It didn't really matter if she understood or not. After all, it was nothing more than a hypothesis I'd come up with.
うんうん
So if you do that... Remy was still making noises and nodding to herself. Time to ignore her. I've been doing a whole lot of searching, but I was still unable to find any data to confirm my hypothesis. I tried taking a different approach, this time focusing my research on the patent itself. I went and checked on the forum website that Shio had told me about, one that listed American patents. Once I was there, I began to look for patents that would fit what I had in mind. What the? Oh! After following a few links, I found an image that with a similar vibe to the one Shio had sent me. At a glance, though, the patent was clearly different from the VR apparatus one. I should read it right away. fluorescent method for remotely monitoring and altering nerve impulse signals and reproducing them as video and audio output. Oh, wow. That was exactly what I had in mind. I involuntarily leapt out of my chair. This is huge.
Huh?
Huge? What's huge? Simply put, this is the technology to read people's minds. Read minds? To sum it up, the audio and video people were imagining in their heads could be stolen by using a certain apparatus. Moreover, it even said that nerve impulses could be monitored from satellites. That meant it was possible to spy on a subject's thoughts no matter where they were on the planet. Can you really do that? Isn't that the kind of thing you'd find in a sci-fi book? Patents can't be filed until the system's been fully completed. You can never get one unless it worked. That made it clear to me that when I've been looking up stuff about patents earlier, that's why this must be a system that's already been proven possible. This wasn't mere fiction. As long as you had the technological capabilities and the funds to build it, you could implement it in any time. Before, Sana had told me that if it's possible to convert specific information into nerve impulses, when to be possible to control all 5 of the senses and even the free will of the people itself. So basically, you would work the system in reverse. Instead of taking images from a person so that you would so that you could take what they see, take their, copy what they sense, you instead implant something in them that would make them sense what you want them to sense. I couldn't find a source for that, so it remained as mere conjecture from her. However, for my own theory, there were sources. Why would something so insane not have spread all throughout Japan? This clearly deserved a Nobel Prize, if not something even bigger. I continued my research, this time looking up the mind-reading keyword. Then I found a record of a particular lawsuit from America. Lawsuit? Oh no, more English. I'm gonna get a headache. It was a really long document, so even I had a hard time reading it. It probably would read poorly, but I decided to use a piece of English to Japanese translation software. The contents of what was written there could be summarized like this. Legal record. Plaintiff was N.K. Rabin. The defendant was the United States Department of Defense, the CIA. The plaintiff's allegations were as thus. As I have become aware that my mind has been read via the use of a peculiar device, my monitored thoughts are then recorded and subsequently transferred to an unknown location using satellites. The aforementioned satellites have taken me hostage. I have been the victim of constant, unending attacks regardless of the time of day, all of which were carried out by those very satellites. 1. Tracking. 2. Mind-reading / telepathic surveillance. 3. Monitoring of all bodily signals. 4. Biorhythmical attacks. 5. Oral attacks. 6. Physical debilitation. Since the latter third of December 1990, I've been forcefully shown artificially created dreams during my sleep, some of which even include video, audio, and even voices. From February to May 1992, I have fallen victim to several biorhythmical attacks, all of which serve to torture me via the induction of pain or psychological harassment. Recognizing that these attacks were aimed specifically toward myself, beginning February of 1992, I began to record the following information in a journal: the date, time, and contents of any particularly agonizing psychological attack I could remember. The biorhythmical attacks were aimed at every single region of my body. The pain, torture, and psychological harassments were coordinated in order to cause discomfort, fatigue, and agony to specific regions of my body, or in some cases, my entire body. The main regions affected are as follows: the chest, the visual system, the abdomen, the brain to induce sleeping disorders, and the brain to show me artificially created dreams. Mind reading, telepathic surveillance, and the government was involved. Wait, are you serious? I know about this one. I saw it in a movie a few years ago. That was fiction, though. But what was written on those records very much wasn't. There were two possibilities. Either the plaintiff was a total mental case, or the entire thing was factual. It was difficult to figure out where exactly the boundary between the two was. Taking into account the pattern from earlier, it could very well be truthful. So Sena and Ayase weren't total mental cases, particularly Ayase. Back then, Ayase had cloned herself right before my very eyes. I hadn't witnessed the exact moment when it happened. All I knew was that when I turned around, another Ayase was there. She'd also shown me how she pulled her D-sword out of thin air. It had been neither a hallucination nor a delusion. After showing me something like that, there was no way I could still label her as a mental case. However, Ayase also had this to say. This too is your delusion. That strange phenomenon. Had it been my delusion coming to fruition? D-swords can only be seen by those who possess the power. You can see my sword, can you not? That can only mean one thing. Maybe that was what Ayase had been talking about when she mentioned the power. A power that projected delusions into reality. Maybe I had that power. Oh no. I want to save. I'm curious. I don't know. Do I want to do it? I feel like if I do it, I'm going to be unlocking like Pandora's box or something. Also, I forgot to save. Oh well. It's a total stretch to think that a psychic ability existed just because a system using scientific means, was able to reproduce delusions as images. You must find it by yourself. Do I do it? Do I concede and activate a positive delusion and see what it does? No. I want to go neutral all the way. Unless the game flat out forces me to choose, I want to go neutral. I do not know of any methods. But what if the method to obtain a D-sword was by using such a psychic ability? So, let's suppose I had that ability within me. It might have been worth a try. Oh, I don't know. I'm very tempted to hit the button. I don't know. Oh, I'm so tempted to hit the button. No, I said I'd do it completely neutral. I picked up the toy D-sword sitting in the corner of my room. I went to stand in the center of my room and brought my sword to eye level like I was an ESO character. Alright, I just needed to picture an image of a sword in my head. Rimi was looking at me. Our eyes met. Hmm? She was grinning at something. I could feel my face turning red. As per my usual habit, I'd held up the sword as if I were alone in this room. It must have been pretty painful to look at from Rimi's perspective. I want to die. I calmed down and lowered the sword. I was too embarrassed to look at her. I'd rather not dig myself any deeper than I already had. I could only hope that she'd be gracious enough to pretend she hadn't seen it. If she did, I'd even be willing to get down on my hands and knees for it. My thoughts were interrupted by Rimi striking the final blow.
Hey, are you playing Samurai?
I shook my head no.
Do you do that regularly?
Once again, I shook my head.
Today's your first time?
This time I nodded.
Would you like me to be your sparring partner? I don't know much about fighting though.
I shook my head vehemently. I'm telling you, I'm not playing samurai.
Hey Taku, why aren't you looking at me?
Isn't it obvious I'm embarrassed, damn it? You saw something you should never have seen. The pure pain and suffering a man underwent when his girlfriend found his... Must have been good... Shut up!
Taku, that...
Oh no, does she hate me now? didn't know if I could ever recover from that. I had to clear up the misunderstanding.
So cute.
Huh?
The thing you just did, you can feel it right here in the heart.
Rimi was writhing in delight as she tightly hugged the Seriton body pillow that sat in my chair. I thought she was going to make fun of me, but judging from her attitude, she seemed to mean what she'd said. In other words, Rimi had just unintentionally moed over me. I felt relieved. She didn't hate me. Thank goodness.
Where did you buy that anyway? Wasn't it expensive?
It was 10,000 yen. I got in a variety shop in Shibuya.
How about 10,000? No, for a toy sword, I'm not sure if that's cheap or expensive. But wow, I didn't realize that they actually sold toys that big. I've never seen one so huge in person. Someone tell you they were selling it at a variety shop you went to?
She really wasn't gonna let go. Was she interested in these kinds of swords or something? Maybe Rimi was actually a total chunibyo in disguise. So, the one who had been making fun of me for having a sword actually wanted one herself? Tsundere much? Oh no. I did my own research. Online.
Oh, you saw it online. Yeah, it's so cool. You can really find anything on it. But to be honest, I stink at it. I can't even use a computer. Anyway, are those swords a new trend or something?
Huh? Why do you ask?
Well, I'm just curious why you decided to buy one.
Maybe I should just tell her the truth. She was going to stay by my side moving forward. Maybe she'd end up helping me search for a real D-sword in the future. If that was the case, it might just be better to tell her everything now and get it out of the way. This is only a fake, though. The real ones exist.
Real ones?
Rimi tilted her head, puzzled. I know people who have real ones. 2 of them. Girls from our school.
Girls? Would girls really want a toy like this?
It's true. And also, they aren't toys.
Oh, right. Sorry.
A real one glows. It has this insane sense of presence, too. That's what I'm looking for. If I could just get my hands on that, I'd be saved.
Saved?
Rimi looked quite puzzled, but I was dead serious. Not to mention a D-sword would be a powerful tool to confront Shogun. So, help. I wouldn't say that I need her help to find it. However, when I thought about what I could even do if she said no, I grew too scared and anxious to say anything. I dropped the fake sword in the spot and sat down on the sofa. With a sigh, I closed my eyes. Would Rimi offer me her help in order to find it? If she did, everything would turn out okay. But I knew how unrealistic it was to expect her to go that far. Up until now, Rimi had always come dashing to my rescue whenever I was in a tough spot, almost like she could read my mind. In that case, maybe I...
Anyway, what I want to say is, even if they're real ones, you better not buy any, okay? The one you already have is just toys, so it's fine. If you ever get your hands on a real one, that'd be a violation of the Swords and Firearms Possession Control Law.
My hopes were crushed instantly. Ugh, what an insane disappointment. And again, Rimi's reaction made sense from the POV of an average person. These past few weeks, I'd encountered so many inexplicable things. I was nearly at the point where I was ready to believe everything that Seinen and Ayase had said. Maybe Ayase was right. I had to find a D-sword entirely on my own.
So Taku,
I felt Rimi sit down next to me.
so about those girls with the real swords, who are they?
Her voice came from very close by. She was right next to me. It was just the 2 of us in an enclosed, dimly lit room, and we were sitting right next to each other. Emergency! Everyone, battle stations, emergency!
Honestly, was a little surprising. I didn't think you knew any girls besides me. Wait, is one of them your girlfriend?
So that was where she was going with this. Could be Rimi was trying to seduce me? The only possible conversation that could result from this topic was one centered around on romance. After I told her the truth, she'd give me her confession, then the mood would start to get really hot and heavy, and then... Oh god, I couldn't do this. I wasn't even remotely prepared for this. I opened my eyes and frantically shook my head. Both Ayase and Sena were mysterious creatures, not to mention absolute mental cases. Schizo didn't even begin to describe them. I'd mow over them if they were 2D characters, but never mow over 3D shit. Especially with Sena. Talking to her just scared me. It wouldn't surprise me if violence was just part of her MO. I wanted to stay as far away from her as possible. So that's to know. That kinda puts me at ease, I guess. Huh? Stop. No.
Flash rip. Oh shit. She clearly said that on purpose. She's totally hitting on me right now. It was a good chance for me to had me right where she wanted. How could I answer? Should I just come out and say exactly what she wanted to hear? Yeah, surely nothing bad could come from that. But I wasn't sure I had the confidence to go out with a real girl. Oh god. It's all falling apart. I was at a loss about what to do, so I opted to subtly examine Rimi's expression. Come on, saying like that was cheating. Stop. 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 No. Stop it. No. We are moving past the scene. Stop it. Oh god, I was acting suspicious, wasn't I? Though to be fair, 3 girls hugging her knees and tilting her head as she looked right at me. What was I supposed to do? She kept acting so cute, I was gonna die of Moviac overdose, even though she wasn't even 2D. Contrast to the blandly libido-fueled thoughts the words Rimi spoke were. Taku, have you ever thought about your future? Huh? What I mean is, all living things, including people, hurt something else just by being alive. She looked very deep in thought. Was she trying to say something here? Does that make sense? Yes. So? So, you know, you shouldn't push yourself so hard. Huh? Does she mean I didn't need to force myself to go to school? That I should stop playing ESO beyond what was reasonable, stop being a total addict, and try to live a healthier lifestyle? Or was she implying that I shouldn't hold back whenever I was struck with lust, and to let my instincts take hold? No. Well, I doubt it was that last. Shut up. Rimi stretched as far as she could, then eagerly rose to her feet. Hammer's skirt flipped. I'm really thirsty. Do you have anything to drink? I stood up and headed toward the fridge. Peeked inside. Had some half-finished cola, but I drank directly from the bottle, so it probably wasn't the best idea to give it to Rimi. If you don't have anything, I could go out to buy something. There's a convenience store over by Shinsen Station, right? I felt Rimi stand up behind me. I'll be right back. She gave me a big smile, then left without saying anything. Being alone with a girl really did make me nervous. Especially with how Rimi sometimes did things that made my heart skip a beat, whether she was aware of it or not. Though in all honesty, she probably wasn't. I sucked in a lingering scent in the air, sensed the remnants of the floral scent wafting through the room. Shut up. Yeah, no shit. Checked out how low it sunk, unable to do anything but cringe at the vulgar deed. I should be terrified of Shogun and Yua, but here I was soaking in complete ecstasy. Thank you, Takumi. While Rimi went out shopping, I went back to researching the patent and mind reading. When I reached my computer, I noticed that Grim had entered the chat room and was looking for me. Hello, you there, Nightheart? Hello, Nightheart, needing as usual. Come on, kid, chat with me, please. Seriously, I got new info. Nightheart-chan, dinner's ready. I sighed and reluctantly entered the chat room. Who could finally decide to show up? You're too slow, Nightheart. Thanks that I've entered the whose eyes are those eyes mode. Damn it, what the fuck was whose eyes are those eyes mode? Grim honestly just wanted to use the phrase for the hell of it. Even though he knew I had seen that goddamn thing, I'd always freak out whenever I saw it. What kind of new info? New gen obs. It happened, bro. The 5th. Oh no. Of
course, I felt the usual depression I always felt whenever I heard about Nugent, but on the other hand, I was also bewildered. I was sure that Shogun and Yua would target me this time. My fate had been delayed, it seemed, though I wasn't sure whether or not to be happy about that. I don't want to know what the 5th case is, to be honest. You want to know the deets? It's on the Taboo homepage. A quick search should tell you everything. I'd rather not. I'm scared about what we're going to find. What time today did it happen? Not today, but they found the body last night. The victim died the day before. This time was seriously insane. The dead guy's brain was removed. Oh, Jesus. Great. Without warning, Grim started telling me all the details of the case, and I began to panic. I was beyond done with all this gory shit. I didn't want to hear about any of it. If I got word of it, I might imagine myself getting brutally murdered in the same way. Even though I still hadn't found out how to get a D-sword. And yet Grim continued mercilessly. Seriously, freaky dude, what do you think the cause of death was? Drumroll, please. Emaciation, which means he was alive even after his brains were removed. What do you mean? The repulsiveness of it all sent chills down my spine. I wrapped my arms around my body. I didn't want to hear anymore. Spare me, please. I'm begging you. My life already went to shit a long, long time ago, so please. Apparently he was in a state kind of like brain death. He might have been in like that for over a week. He obviously couldn't eat or drink, so no wonder they died of emaciation. Agile already named the case Numbskull. Now, netizens really are epic at times. Okay, so this part's layers. Get this. The victim was a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists had their brains removed. Actual what the fuck mal levels of irony. Jesus Christ. A psychiatrist. The moment I saw that word, my heart rate skyrocketed. Oh no, don't tell me it's him. I might have been overthinking it, but I had to check to make certain. But I also didn't want to. You have to know. After hesitating on and off for a while, I eventually went to the homepage of Taboo and opened the news article reporting on the Numbskull incident. Oh no. Oh, shit. Male corpse found in Shibuya Ward, 5th possible new gen case. Early morning on the 23rd, the body of 41-year-old Takashina Fumio was discovered in the sheets of Shibuya Ward, Tokyo. The victim, Dr. Takashina, was a psychiatrist at AH Tokyo General Hospital, also found in Shibuya Ward. The TMPD have released the cause of death, stating that the man died via emaciation due to severe malnutrition. As well as this, Dr. Takashina's head was found to have received a clean cut along the top of the skull, and his brain was removed. The authorities claim it is possible that he survived in a state akin to brain death long after the removal of his brain. The investigation revealed that Dr. Takashina had not shown up to work ever since the 10th of this month. Ever since last month, Shibuya Ward had received immense publicity regarding the string of grotesque murders known as the New Generation Madness. The Shibuya Police Department are investigating these murders under the possibility that they have all been committed by the same culprit. This is the first murder of it being someone we actually know. We didn't really know any of the other people who got murdered, but we know Dr. Takashina. And when did Takumi go to see Dr. Takashina? How could this... How could... The victim's name was Takashina Fumio. Dr. Takashina. Dr. Takashina had been killed. He was provoking me. Shogun was blatantly provoking me. To see that I'd killed the only doctor I could rely on, just to set an example. This can't be. It can't. Help me, someone, please. I let out a scream. My mind was in complete disarray. I feel like I was on the brink of snapping. Not like this, not like this, not like this. I want to die. I don't want to die. Please save me. I searched for Remy. I frantically looked around the room over and over. She wasn't there. She wasn't there. She wasn't there. Why wasn't she there? Because she just went out shopping. I lay down on the ground, clutching my head.
助けて、
Help me,
リミ。
Remy.
助けて
Help
よ。
me.
どこ
Don't
にも
leave
行か
me.
ないで。
I'm begging
頼
you.
むよ。
Okay. Someone responded to me. Shocked, I looked up to find Remy standing right behind me, holding a convenience store bag.
リミ。
Remy. She'd come back. Thank goodness. Relieved, I held out my hand. Remy crouched down and embraced my hand with both of her own. Her hands had been cool when she'd touched me before, but now they felt so unbelievably warm.
ここにいる。
I'm here.
私は
I'm here, Taku.
怯えないで。
You don't need to be afraid anymore. Using her finger, Remy wiped my tears away with a gentle smile. How pathetic could I be? I wasn't a man at all. Showing how terrified I was, crying and screaming all in front of a girl. And yet even while knowing how pathetic I was, she still said she would just stay by my side. Right now, this warmth I felt was the only thing keeping my mind from shattering. Until I got a D-sword, I never wanted to let her go. Alright, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end it here for today. Again, I have to check out if the audio even sounds good. But if it did, then we're gonna keep using the sound mixer. We're probably gonna keep using it anyways if it does sound good, simply because I gotta test it more and more until I got a proper feel for it, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed and hope to see you all later. Peace.